Tri-City Shopping Center in Redlands, the mall with a heart.
Kcaa.
Live from the NBC News Radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, located in, well, it's not so beautiful today, but overcast California. Thanks for tuning into the Water Zone Show. Good afternoon. I'm Rob Starr, along with Mr. Mike Barron, who I call famously Mikeypedia, because he knows everything about irrigation. And together, we're collectively known as the
Water Boys.
Happy New Year, Michael. And
Happy New Year to you, Rob.
And Happy New Year's to all our listeners. We appreciate them sticking with us and making the show great. Got a good show today. You heard about the bomb cyclone?
I did. Bomb cyclone?
The bomb.
Yeah.
The snow thing?
Yeah, in the East Coast.
Yep.
Yeah. I've got, one daughter used to live in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and that's right on the coast, and it's snowing there as a result of this weather condition that they're experiencing. And now she's moved to Baltimore. Of course, it's colder there.
Yes.
So she is glad to be in Southern California and going to be in Laguna Beach tonight. So,
does she miss the sailors? Because she lives close to the.
No, she promised me that she would not hang around sailors.
Good,
but she did date a fighter pilot for a little bit. So that was okay. He promised to take me up in the jet fighter, provided they were still dating. That kind of didn't go very far, so I didn't get a chance to ride up there. But.
My nephew, who's a doctor, and he's at what do you call it? The naval base out there,
Newport News.
No, north of there, the big one, Norfolk.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a flight. He is also a flight surgeon, so he has to fly 4 hours a month to keep his certification. And he said when he first got in the Naval Academy, they took him up in a plane and they try to do all kinds of loops and things. He said the pilots do that on purpose because they want to see how you take it. He didn't do so good. He said he messed the mask up a little bit. It was pretty bad.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm very sensitive to motion sickness to the point where at Universal Studios I was unable to go on to the Harry Potter broomstick ride. I could not make it. So anyway, I had to sit that one out with my little 5-year-old grandson who was too short. He had a good excuse. He was too short. I didn't have a good excuse other than getting too dizzy. But anyway, no, it is great. The only thing that's not so great about the new year here in Southern California, of course, is the lack of rain and snow.
Yep,
which we will talk about in the near future, won't we?
Absolutely. We'll have Miss Chris Austin on from Maven's Notebook. She'll talk about the measurement of the snow level the other day.
Well, it's and whether we are on the brink of a new drought phenomenon here in Southern California, so that'll be of noteworthy interest to our listeners.
Absolutely. Anybody who wants to call in today, please do so. The call-in numbers are 888-909-1050 or 909-792-5222. Well, anyway, we have a guest who's in the middle of the bomb cyclone. I don't know where they came up with that name, but everybody now is using it on every radio and television station.
You're sure it's not fake news, right?
It could be. We have a gentleman, his name is Jackson Madnick, and he's the founder and developer of a company called Pearls Premium. And if you remember, we met him.
Yes, I remember him.
We met him at a Southern Nevada Smart Innovation Symposium 2 years ago. Bumped into him again this past October. And he had some pretty interesting product. And he had come on the show from the Southern Nevada Water Show for about 3 minutes, and because we were just going through highlights of the show, and he had told us about some stuff. He did send a pack of seeds to me. I tried it. It does work. But there's lots of things you should know about it and how to do it and such. But anyway, I want to bring him on and kind of get a little background from him, and then we'll get into his product. So, Jackson, welcome. And is it cold where you are now?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me on. We have about 2 feet of snow and 40, 50-mile-an-hour winds. It's really whiteout here. We were having our extreme winter weather. You're having your extreme drought and fires, and so the environment is definitely taking some extremes everywhere. So it's good to do things that not only save time, money, and water, but also sequester carbon and lessen global warming, which is, part of what I wanted to talk about.
Well, we're going to talk about grass tonight. I just want to make sure that everybody knows the grass we're referring to is turf, not the kind that you smoke or
not
or
not
eat.
the kind that's became legal here in California on the
Yes.
first of the new year. But this the whole issue of turf grass and having it be green, lush, and water conserving at the same time, I think, is oftentimes it's like you can't have both. I think a lot of us in California, having been through this 4-year drought, really got it drummed into our heads that you can't have green grass and save water at the same time. But I think you might have a little different perspective.
Can you tell us a little bit about how Pearl started and how you got into this, and then bring us up to speed?
Well, my mother was an environmentalist during the 50s and 60s before this kind of thing was popular. She used to take us to the beach or the ocean and talk to us about water, that we need to conserve and protect our water resources. So it's been a lifelong thing for me in terms of saving water and protecting water. And I did some research back in the early, around the year 2000, to see if there was such a thing as a low water grass and a grass that didn't need chemicals to stay green. And there wasn't anything. So did some research in the internet. I found the 4 of the smartest PhDs in turf science on the planet. I asked them to help me. And I've been through 9 years of college myself, but I know enough to know what I don't know, and I reach out for the best people. And they helped me find 130 grass seeds that were more drought, disease, bug, and salt tolerant. And then we narrowed it down to 7 special seeds, and then we grew thousands and thousands of them in different proportions. And finally, it actually took us 5.5 years and about 7,500 trials, and we found one batch we call our AHA batch, where the grass was actually growing much slower above the soil, and it's putting all its energy into the roots to grow much deeper roots than it should. And then we grew a couple thousand more trials from that AHA batch to go up and down very tiny amounts in the percentages until we perfected the interaction. And in the interaction, it grows very slow above the soil. It puts all its energy into the roots. It actually grows 12-inch roots in 3 months, and it grows up to 4-foot deep roots in a year, as opposed to most grasses only 3 or 6-inch roots. So these deep roots have lots of amazing benefits, and through all in all, 8 years of initial research and 8 more years of slight improvements to where we're now in our 5th generation grass, and we've had over 300 rave reviews by the experts and won 2 national and international awards for innovation, and it's the perfect grass for California. I mean, Newsweek magazine did a review of all grass, and they called our grass the holy grail of grass and the solution for California.
Wow. So this really was a multi-year initiative that was started by your interest in, that was really developed in childhood, just from the fact that your mother brought you up to be respectful of Mother Nature, and in particular water resources.
Yep.
And
well, I'm sorry, go on.
and when you talk about these different batches, and you got the AHA batch, that was after about how much time of experimenting with the different 7 seeds?
It was 5.5 years and about 7,500 trials to get to that one AHA batch, and then a couple thousand more trials going up and down very tiny amounts in the AHA batch to basically perfect the interaction and get the maximum slowness of grass above the soil and deep roots under the soil. And then it relates to health and water and saving time, money, and water, and helping the planet and the climate. And actually, the climate interacts with the weather, which is giving us extreme droughts and wildfires and tornadoes and hurricanes like we've never seen before. So, in a way, through your grass, you can actually make a major difference in your life to save time, money, and water, and also do your share to lessen climate change and extreme weather.
Now, when you did these tests, were they done in one specific area? Because obviously I would think soil and temperature and all of that has a lot to do with the growing process.
Well, we initially did them in the Northeast, but then once we had our AHA batch, we did test lawns all over the country, and it amazingly grows well in all climates, all areas of North America, Canada, Europe, and all over the world. It's in about 20 countries right now.
And would you consider, or would you call this grass to be green all year long, or does it go into a dormant period in the winter like a warm season turf grass would?
No, it doesn't. The grass is more amazing than what we were initially. We were looking for something that just needs less water and didn't need chemicals to stay green. But we found through the deep roots and the slow growth, and that most of the seeds are native to North America here before the American Indians, that it stays green year-round. It stays green in the super heat of summer and the super cold of winter. So you never have to put down a winter rye or something to stay green. When it gets colder, the grass stays green. It's one crop. You put it down once, and you have green lawn year-round in spite of heat and cold.
No, a lot of people go out and buy grass seed, and they have different methodologies for applying it, or like prepping the ground first and such as that, adding soil amendments. I know when you plant grass seeds initially, they say to use a what do you call it? Add some phosphorus to that, and then later down the road, when it starts to mature, then you switch to nitrogen and things like that. And how is all of that? You can't just buy a thing of seeds and throw it, or can you just throw it on the grass and it's going to do? There has to be some preparation, knowing whether your grass is highly acidic or not. I mean, there's all this other science behind it. How does yours? Because when I got your bag, I obviously, because we're in the business, I did probably a little more than I should, but I wanted to be sure that I was doing the correct thing by applying it and prepping the ground and everything else that way. But did I overdo it, or?
No. And having grass, I'll go over the best management practices, simple things you can do to have the best lawn in your neighborhood. In fact, Bob Beeler from used to be on This Old House TV show has our grass in both of his homes in New England and down in Florida, and loves and raves about our grass. And but the most important thing about grass is picking the right seed, some kind of native deep root seed, and then planting at the right time of year. And the grass that we created is a native, non-GMO grass, and you can plant in California, in terms of time of year, in the fall, anytime from October, November, up until the end of February. So one of the best times of year to plant in California is right now for the next 6 weeks. That way it's well established before summer, and it's far more drought tolerant than any other grass in your neighborhood. And that's if you're in California or you're in very hot states down south or along the Gulf. In cooler areas up north, and a lot of the cool areas of the country, the best time to plant is either early spring or fall, when the soil temperature, not the air temperature, soil temperatures are between 50 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, it's the best time of year to plant. But right now, it's a great time of year to plant in California. And people call us all the time asking, what's the best time to plant? So we've created on our website at pearlspremium.com, up in the upper left-hand corner, we have a button that says, when can I plant in my area? And when you click on the button, it shows you a national map. It's very accurate. It'll tell you the temperature of the soil in your backyard if you zoom in on it. And then there's a color key to tell you that color, what the soil temperature is. And so if the soil temperature is anything between 50 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, it's time to go. And again, I just checked today, and all over California, it's the perfect soil temperature to plant right now. And otherwise, you can plant just in the spring or the fall, and then you can actually plant in the summer with a process called hydroseeding. It's when they ground up newspaper and put it in a solution with water. You mix in the seeds and they spray it on your lawn, and the wet newspaper ground up newspaper around the seeds holds moisture, so you can plant it at any temperature up to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. But otherwise, if you're just top spreading it, in California, it's now when the soil temperature is between 50 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit.
So Jackson, I think that's a great explanation of when we can plant the seed. Can you share with us a little bit of your recommendation about preparing the soil? I'm thinking in my own front yard, there's some areas that are a little thin, a little more bare than other areas. And should I rake that up, wet it down, and then apply the seed, and then keep it moist for a certain period of time? Or can you share with us that soil prep and what's the best way to
people often ask us, do I have to tear up the lawn? The answer is no. All you do is you cut the grass brutal short as you can, and you rake away the clippings or vacuum up the clippings. You can do it, or you can have a landscaper do it. And it just because you want to get that stuff off the soil, so you have good contact between the new seeds you're putting down in the soil. So you cut it short, rake away the clippings, spread the seed, and a little bit of organic compost, and then just water it. And if the soil is very hard, like you stomp on it and it feels like wood or concrete, it's helpful to do something called core aerating.
Okay.
It's a machine with these pipes that go around in a circle, and they pull up little plugs. You may see it on a golf course along the road. The plugs are about the size of your finger. And by pulling out these plugs of soil, and you don't rake them away, just leave them there, the soil in between the core holes will then expand, close up those holes, and then every particle of soil gets a little space around it for air and water to get in, and fine little roots to get down in the ground. It loosens the soil. So if your soil is loose, it's ready to go. But if it's hard, you core aerate, once a year, and that's very, very helpful. It's an easy sort of self-propelled machine. You can rent and do it, or you can have a landscaper come by and do it for you. And then the only other thing that's helpful when you're starting our grass is be mindful of the pH, and you test the pH, and the pH is the acidity versus alkalinity of the soil. And if the soil is between 6.0 and 7.0 pH, it's perfect and ready to go. If the soil is below 6, use 40 pounds of pellet lime per 1,000 square feet. And if the soil is higher than 7.0, you use a little bit of sulfur to bring it down. But everything I'm telling you is on the simple instructions on the back of the bag.
Oh, okay.
And
how do you measure that? I mean,
the pH.
Well, I mean, I know from school.
But I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
You're talking about, hey, how do I determine the pH of my soil?
Right.
Yeah. Well, you can just take a spoon or trowel, go around to not just one spot because it may not be representative of your yard, but you go around to just 3 or 4 random places in the yard, scoop up a little bit of soil from the top 3 inches and throw it in the baggie. And you go do 3 or 4 different spots in your yard, and you put it in the same baggie, you mix it up, and you can bring it to many quality garden centers, and they will test the pH for you for free. And if it's between 6 and 7, it's ready to go. And if it's lower than 6, they'll tell you how much and what to use to bring it up. If it's higher than 7, which in some areas of California, your soil or your water is a little bit alkaline, so you use a little sulfur to bring it down. But again, everything is on the back of the bag. But so most quality garden centers will test the pH for free. And if they don't, you can buy a pH test kit for between $3 and $4. It'll take you 2 minutes. And if you have someone in the 3rd grade or older, I'm just kidding, they can do the test for you. It's very, very simple. And then you can, just in 2 minutes, you can determine what your pH is and know whether it's ready to go, or you need to spread a little pellet lime to bring it up, or a little sulfur to bring the pH down.
I would
Yeah, no, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, I would expect that you have instructions on the back of your bag of seed.
Yes. Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, generally speaking, once you correct for the pH, once we've cut the lawn, we've core aerated, the lawn because it is, maybe too hard pack. Then my question is, once we do put down the seed in the organic compost, is it important to try and keep that organic compost in the freshly laid seed moist 24/7? So we do maybe 2 or 3 or 4 cycles a day, short cycles of irrigation?
Yeah, at least once or maybe twice.
What's the what's the germination period? I mean, I've done it with yours, but just for our audience, what do you consider the germination period for your product?
Well, it'll sprout in about 7 days, about 1 week, and then you'll have a gorgeous lawn in 1 month, nicer than you've ever had before. And it grows very slow. So if this grass, you cut it only once every 4 to 6 weeks, as opposed to cutting other grass once a week. And it will grow up to 4-foot roots. So it'll need 75% less water. So your water bill will go down by 75%. And you won't have water fines, and you won't, during water restrictions, you'll have the greenest lawn in your neighborhood. There's a fellow in San Diego with our grass who was guilty about it, watering the lawn, and some of his neighbors were sort of giving him a hard time when he wanted to have a green lawn for his dogs and his children. And he found out about a grass, put it in. Now he in the heat of summer, he waters it once a week to have the greenest lawn in his neighborhood.
That's
he
amazing.
Calls it the grass without guilt.
I like that.
His neighbors no longer give him a hard time about his grass now that it's Pearl's Premium.
Now, go ahead.
And the one thing that's important to know is a grass has some very special benefits, and amongst them, that it outcompetes other grass and weeds without chemicals. So because of the deep roots, other grass can't make it, and it outcompetes them, and it outcompetes most weeds without chemicals. You mow it only once every 4 to 6 weeks. It takes 75% less water compared to other grass after it gets established. And it basically pays back in savings in mowing time and water in only 2 or 3 weeks from the dramatic savings in mowing and water and fertilizer. And then you have savings for years to come. And also, because of the deep roots, up to 4-foot deep roots, it sequesters or pulls carbon out of the air down into the soil and releases it and locks it into the soil to help lessen global warming and climate change. So you're doing your part to lessen extreme weather, help the earth, and lessen things like droughts and fires and so on. And the other thing about it is because of the deep roots holding so much water, it acts as a better fire break than most grass. So it'll actually help protect your home. And there's actually people in an area of the country called Lightning Alley. A lot of them are using our grass, where during the summer they have thousands or tens of thousands of lightning strikes, storms almost every day, and with lots of lightning. And they don't have trees around their houses. They have lots of lightning rods on the houses because they don't want lightning to hit the trees and then the fire to go across the grass and burn the house down. So they have to irrigate the grass all the time, keep it green and make it more of a fire break. And there's a number of people there in Lightning Alley that have our grass because they only have to water it minimally once a week as opposed to every day to have an effective fire break. So I think in the future that's going to be more and more of an important thing for California with your recent fires.
And of course, too, the in the summer in California or any Southwest regional area, the cooling effect of that green turf is going to be fantastic in terms of reducing cooling costs from air conditioners. So just like a tree can shade a house, so can this green grass that requires 75% less water contribute to reducing CO2 production.
Right. Yeah, the outside temperature, generally, if you have a grass lawn versus concrete or a plastic lawn, is 20 degrees cooler up at your head level. It can be as much as 50 degrees cooler right at the ground level.
Wow! And
so it'll definitely lessen your electric bill, on top of lessening your water bill and preventing fines and preventing having to mow. Most people, a lot of people in our country mow their own grass. No one has enough time, so if you can only have to mow it once every 4 to 6 weeks, that's a huge benefit as opposed to mowing every week.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, because of the deep roots, it outcompetes weeds without chemicals. So you have a nicer, lush, year-round green grass with very few to no weeds in it. And your neighbors will be saying, "Wow, what are you doing with your lawn?" And the grass is now in over 400,000 lawns all across the country, with over 100,000 of those lawns are all over California in almost every community.
Wow. A great testament to the effectiveness of that combination of grass seeds that you've created.
Yeah. How do people find out where to buy this? And then I hear you're running some specials?
You can buy it at most of the Whole Food markets in the Northeast. We're hoping in the next year it'll be in Whole Food markets all across the country. It's at many quality garden centers all over the U.S. now. And up in Canada, you can buy it from Sun Country Organics. They're now our distributor for Canada. And otherwise, you can buy our fifth-generation grass, which is guaranteed to be our fifth-generation grass if you go to pearlspremium.com, and that's spelled PearlsPremium.com. And other people sell our grass, but some of the people are selling our third or fourth generation grass. If you want to get our most improved and best for California, go to our website, pearlspremium.com, to get our fifth generation grass. And otherwise, you can recommend to your local garden center to get our grass. They can contact us and get it in a few days. Or you can order on the internet, and we send it out right away. You'll have it in a few days.
Excellent.
And
what size bags do they come in? Because I consider a small bag.
Yeah, it comes in 5-pound bags that'll do 500 to 800 square feet, and it comes into 25-pound bags that'll do 3,000 to 4,000 square feet. And we have a special discount right now for the listeners of your show. When they go to our website, pearlspremium.com, they can go to the Buy Now button, and they put in the discount code, The Water Zone, TheWaterzone, just like the name of your show, The Water Zone, and they get a 20% discount off the grass, which will just about pay for free shipping, and for only the next 3 days, tonight through Saturday night. Again, go to pearlspremium.com.
Now, what happens when you're snowed in and you can't get the shipment out? You extend that out a little bit days.
Oh yeah, we will.
I'm just kidding.
Extend it for a couple days.
I'm just kidding.
Absolutely.
I'm just
but
kidding.
If you put the order in.
Well, thank you so much for
that.
That's a pretty significant discount. I'm going to take advantage of that, and I'm going to mention it to some friends. And I mean, it's just pretty phenomenal. Those deep roots, I think that's what's the key to the success, is those native grass seeds and that combination that you've created.
Absolutely.
Sounds fantastic.
So, hey, Jackson, we really appreciate you coming on the show tonight. And again, anybody wants to go look that up, it's www.pearlspremium.com. And that'll be perfect. And
Pearl was your mother's name, correct?
Well, I'm bookended by Pearl. Pearl was my mother, who's an environmentalist, and also my 16-year-old daughter, who's also an environmentalist.
Oh, excellent.
Pearl. So I've got pearls all around, and you can use this both for lawns, green roofs, green walls, fire breaks, and to hold soil and stop erosion, which I'm sure for lots of areas of California where there's no vegetation, it's all burned. They can just throw this over the bare earth and quickly get deep roots to hold everything in place and have greenness again.
Excellent.
And you can use it along the roads for municipalities or commercial properties. And somebody sent me pictures today from Anchorage, Alaska, where they're making sculptures with our grass on it.
Oh my gosh!
So if you want to put some pictures of Pearl's Premium lawns, I'll send you some pictures you can put on your website.
Yeah, I saw those pictures you sent to me. I was laughing about it. So, well, thanks. Yeah. We got to go up to a break here. We do appreciate it, Jackson, coming on. And again, any of our listeners, they should try this out and check out the website. And anyway, we'll be back in a minute. Thanks for joining us, and stick around. We'll be back in just 1 minute.
Thank you, Pearl's Premium.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Do you hear it? Springtime! And folks across the country are excited to get their yards ready so they can get outside and kick back again. And with Kcaa Miracle-Gro in your shed, it's easy. Whether you plan to grow spectacular plants and bountiful flowers, or enjoy a thick, healthy lawn all season long, now's the time to get outside and fill... Oh, wait. Do you hear that? The sound of great things to come. It's time to fill your shed with Kcaa Miracle-Gro.
Are you looking for a place to buy your landscape and gardening items? Come visit us at Site One Landscape Supply. We offer a large and quality selection of irrigation, landscape, and outdoor living products such as Toros water-efficient precision nozzles. Site One Landscape Supply has over 30 locations right here in Southern California, and we are the largest national wholesale distributor of landscape supplies in the United States. Site One's knowledgeable and friendly staff is equipped to help you with all your landscape, irrigation, and outdoor living projects. Whether you're redoing your backyard into a drought-tolerant garden or creating a water-efficient landscape for your client, Site One has everything you need, including the latest in water-saving technologies, drought-tolerant plants for your yard, irrigation supplies, fertilizer and weed control products, landscape accessories, hardscape products, outdoor lighting, and much, much more. Visit SiteOne.com to find a store near you or stop by today. Site One. We are stronger together.
Well, welcome back to the Water Zone with Mike and Rob. I hope everybody's having a great start to the new year. And we kind of altered our schedule a little bit. Normally we have Ms. Chris Austin, who's the purveyor of Maven's Notebook, on first, but Jackson is from Boston and it's 3 hours difference, so we, out of respect, we put him on first, and we thank Chris for letting us switch that around. So Chris, welcome to the show. Happy New Year. Hope you had a great holiday, and I thought you were going to be at Disneyland this week.
No, that was last week.
Ah.
Yes, we do that all the time. And I got to tell you, as parents, it's much better to bring your kids to Disneyland as teenagers rather than toddlers, because they don't go into those meltdowns. And you know what you do when you stand in all those lines is they talk.
Yeah.
I don't allow my teenagers to bring their headphones. So when we stand in those lines for an hour and a half, 2 hours, they talk. And I get more talking done with them in those 2 days than perhaps the rest of the year. So my advice to parents out there is go to Disneyland when your kids are teenagers, and do not fear those lines.
Yeah.
That is a way to turn lemons into lemonade.
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah, I discovered this a long time ago. You know, we've been doing this now for 6 years. We go around Christmas time, in between usually Christmas and New Year's, and it's busy, but it's really not all that bad. And man, in the summer it's worse, and it's 100 degrees, so it's much better in the wintertime.
Well, I heard that a couple of the lands had some power outage last week, so obviously you didn't get caught up in that.
No, we
problem.
went the day after, but they had, Disneyland had a number of malfunctions on their rides that day, but I don't know. You get used to it at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Well, they have so
Line
much to
up.
choose from, and they do a great job of trying to get back everything up online, as quickly as possible, because they don't want to. They're pretty focused on taking care of the customer, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, they are, and they're really focused on giving you a great experience being there. Like, they really want the kids that are there, the little girls and the little boys, to really think that they're princes and princesses. And so if you really think about it, you never see any of the underbelly of Disneyland. You'll never see the work yards or whatever. They can't hide the cranes where they're building Star Wars lands, but you can't see any of the construction or any of the stuff going on. It's just like invisible to you.
No, even
contrast to Six Flags, you go up on their roller coaster and you're like, oh, there's the equipment yard.
No,
there's their trash bin.
They do testing for the audio only at certain times. When usually in the winter the parks are closed on Monday, so they do a lot of testing on that. And if they have to do any testing during the week, they don't do it past 10 o'clock. I mean, they're pretty strict. I don't know if you were listening in a little bit before when you called in. We had a gentleman from back east. He's from a seed company, and we were talking about grass. And we're talking about turf grass. Make sure again that we're clear on that. But one of the things that you had in your notebook today was what legal marijuana means for water in Western states.
Oh yeah, here we go. Here comes cannabis. I like to remind people that in the drought we really hammered on almonds and alfalfa in the desert and all these things. Although, interestingly, we didn't complain about the grapes. So we were pissed about the pop, but we were fine with the grapes, fine with the wine.
Yeah.
But now, boy, when the drought comes in, the next drought, and maybe that will be this year, when we really start arguing about water being used for crops, I'm sure we're going to have some interesting arguments with cannabis. But yeah, there's a lot of water quality issues and water use issues with that too. I mean, this is a whole new ball game in a lot of ways. So we'll have to see what happens here.
Well.
Have you read or seen any estimates about total water consumption by cannabis growing in California yet, or from some of the other states that have legalized marijuana?
I haven't really. I mean, this is all sort of new and forming here in our state, and actually, just became officially legal just days ago.
Yeah.
So, I think we're all kind of seeing what happens. There's a lot of hope that we're going to be able to coax the people who are growing it illegally on the public lands in the mountains and elsewhere, that we're going to be able to coax them into, participating in a legal manner. But not sure that's going to happen yet.
Well, and then are they legally withdrawing water from rivers or streams or tributaries? And I doubt that. They drop their pump in and they pull the water. But it'll be interesting to see how this sorts itself out, because there's got to be irrigation of the cannabis crop, I would think, and there's a lot of indoor operations, and I think it would be very difficult to grow it out in open land. So I'm not sure. I haven't followed the regulations yet, but boy, avocado farmers have a problem with people stopping on the road and picking avocado crops.
Yeah.
I don't see. Are we going to see people going and raiding marijuana fields? Or better yet, are we going to see, like you see strawberry stands? Are you going to draw, here you go, bud.
Fresh cut marijuana.
Yeah. Well, they just had a big bust here in Riverside about 2 weeks ago. They showed this really nice young lady, probably about 35 to 40, and they busted. She had a gigantic warehouse in town, and she was doing it internally. Now, I don't know anything about growing cannabis and stuff, but somebody had mentioned to me, and I can't quantify it, maybe somebody here knows about it, that they also use additional chemicals to help grow this thing faster.
Oh, yeah, well, a lot of fertilizers and a lot of things, sure. But to be fair, we farmers do that on their crops out in the field as well.
Yeah, I don't know if it's anything that's going to contaminate. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to contaminate the land or anything, or the.
Well, the big concern is, getting them to obey water quality regulations. So the State Water Board went to work and has come up with water quality regulations and cannabis growing licenses that, an attempt to bring people in. Now, will this bring the people down from the mountains that are growing illegally? That remains to be seen. That is really, up in Northern California, that's a huge problem. These people with these illegal grows, they're just out in the mountains anywhere, and they oftentimes booby trap their grows so that, to protect them. So you can have people just out there hiking, not expecting to come across anything, and walk into a very dangerous situation. And not to mention that, they're putting all sorts of chemicals and things around. Some people in Calaveras County were telling me that they dug a well, and then just to make it easier to put the fertilizer on their crops, they dumped their fertilizer into the well.
Oh my gosh.
And that means it goes into the whole, aquifer at large. And there's nobody testing this, or nobody, really out there looking for these types of violations. So it's actually quite serious. And some people, some of the counties in Northern California have actually declared a state of emergency
over this issue of
grows in the mountains and on public lands.
You would have thought somebody would have recognized all of this, and what about manpower to do these investigations? And if they can't do it for what's been going on for years up in the mountains and area, now they're going to license tons of people.
Well, the only thing I think is they know they can tax it at the point of sale, and once they start collecting taxes, then they'll have revenues. Now, whether those revenues will go towards the enforcement, that's another
subject. And these people that are applying for licenses are I'm surely not saying I'm going to grow up in the Sierra Nevadas on some remote piece of land. I'm sure they have to declare where they're going to be growing in. I think they're either looking for fields or a lot of indoor operations, I think, are what we're going to see.
Well, Chris, I've got to ask you, are we on the precipice of a new drought?
Oh, gosh. They had a snow survey yesterday, and it was pretty bad.
Yep.
Dirt in the field that he's supposed to go to look at snow stuff for. Water managers are saying, no need to be too worried yet. But if you ask me, I think that last year what might have just been an anomaly, and I think we're going to be headed right back into drought.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised.
And then
But again, it's true. You know, a lot of wet season to go.
So Governor Brown, will it be April 1st, 2018, once again when he declares a drought emergency up there? That's kind of where I'm thinking is if there's no snow on the ground, then he's gonna declare it again.
Yeah.
I imagine he might declare it earlier than that if the season goes poorly. The best thing is that we have a lot of water in our reservoirs. They're all above average.
Except Oroville, of course, but
yes, except for Oroville. And I think that the key here would be that we take into consideration that we don't know what next year is going to be, and we don't draw down our reservoirs as we would in a normal year. I think we need to be conservative.
And we need to take the responsible road and start conserving now, modestly.
Well, yeah, definitely. Climate change, whether you believe it human-caused or not, climate change is here, and it's in our data. And they can show charts that show that since the year 2000, and actually even prior to that, we're getting more rain, less snow. Things are changing out on the landscape, and we have to respond to that. Whether or not you think it's human-caused or not, it's happening. And we can't bury our heads in the sand and pretend it's not. And I think at this point it doesn't matter what the cause of it is. I think people need to take their blinders off and look at the data. And the data shows that not only is the temperatures rising, but more importantly, the nighttime temperatures are not cooling off like they used to be. And I think, to me, that's the larger story that really goes uncovered. Here in Santa Clarita, just northern L.A. County, not this last year, but a few years ago when we had the hot summers, and the temperature at night did not drop down below 70 out here. Usually it does. Usually gets down into the 60s, upper 50s. And my garden tomatoes did not ripen for 6 weeks until the nighttime temperatures dropped. Now, if I'm a farmer with a field of crops that is requiring chill time at night, and that chill time doesn't come, and the crop does not ripen, I don't believe there's a way to fix that. So we've got to start thinking about these things and figuring out how we're going to adapt to them, because they're most definitely happening.
I did not realize that the reason that the crop of tomatoes that we planted this past year that didn't develop the way they had in the past 2 previous years was because it didn't get cold enough at night. I thought it was maybe, and we put enough, we put enough amendments into the soil. We did
interesting, huh? I mean, we were, my husband and I were looking at our tomato plants, going, "What is up with this? Why are they sitting here green?" And we started asking our neighbors, and they're going, "Yeah, my plants are staying green too." And then I started looking at the nighttime temperatures, and I remember reading that the nighttime temperatures are important to tomato plants. And those chill time temperatures at night are important to a lot of crops besides.
I can't wait to go home and impress my wife with my newfound knowledge. Thanks for that. And by the way, in terms of responding to, this potential new drought condition, the Natural Resources Defense Council did take issue with 2 cities, Murrieta and Pasadena, that they sued them over the fact that they weren't doing what they were required to do based on the Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance, which was that new projects of a certain size, had to have water budgets established and had to meet certain maximum water usage limits. And
they didn't get a warning notice?
I think it's law. So
yeah, I think it's intent to sue, and there is a state law that says you need to either use the state landscape ordinance or adopt your own. know.
Right.
And the other thing is that NRDC did kind of an interesting study because, they tracked the evolution of the Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance, and they also tracked how many cities reported back in 2011 that they had, or 2010, that they had adopted the state ordinance or created their own that would be at least as efficient or water reducing in their parameters by modifying the ordinance to their local conditions. But in fact, fewer of the cities submitted their reports that said, yes, this is the agency, this is the department that actually oversees this. This is how we enforce it. And that's what I think NRDC is taking issue with, is that cities are basically saying, hey, that's nice that you Department of Water Resources and the state of California passed this legislation, but we're kind of ignoring it. And from that standpoint, I think it's legitimate concern that these cities are not applying or playing by the rules that so many other cities are.
And there are those people, and I can think of one that was from Pasadena, but I would not assign the whole thought to all of Pasadena.
Yes.
But his main concern several years ago, and he was very vocal about it, a blogger, he wrote about it a bunch, was that by reducing the amount that people could water their landscapes, that was going to cause Pasadena land values to drop, and he felt that people watering their lands was replenishing the aquifer underneath them. I'm not sure how much traction he ever really got with that, but there are those that disagree. And it's hard. I can be glad my husband doesn't listen to the show, so I will tell him he does not understand this idea that there's not enough water.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I'm willing to pay for it. I want to use it. Why should anybody tell me that I can't?
Well, what he doesn't realize is that the pricing is not as flexible and reactive in water as it is with gasoline. The market would, if water agencies could change water pricing on a daily basis, demand would always equal supply. But but they're not allowed to do that. So
they'll always have that issue.
And it's hard for people to contemplate being constrained by a resource. I mean, water is just it's unlimited, isn't it? You turn on your tap, it always comes out. I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. We just started groundwater management in just those last few years, but prior to that, groundwater is water. It's money. If you have land and you have groundwater, you can make money. And so people have sunk their wells and they have pumped that groundwater like it's never going to end. Mm-hmm. And they're surprised when they say, wait a minute, I have to control how much I pump, but this is unlimited. But what in this world is unlimited? No. What resource do we really have that we can make money off of that is unlimited?
There was the critical parameter. I was going to say, our respect and admiration for water information from Maven's Notebook, that's unlimited, but you added that extra.
Yes, that is unlimited.
Yeah, that's unlimited, but you said we got to be able to make money off of it. So then that was the other caveat. But yeah, just in final comment on this MWELO, Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance, there are 542 cities and counties in the state of California that are responsible by law for implementing the ordinance. And in 2010, 2/3 of all these jurisdictions reported in as they were required. In 2015, in the middle of our biggest drought, guess what? 2/3 of all the jurisdictions did not report. So instead of taking a step forward, they took a big step back. So we've got our work cut out for us, especially if we're on the verge of the next dry period.
Absolutely. Hey, for our listeners, for all our California listeners and so forth, if you want to get the most independent and most trusted source for water news and information every day, you can go subscribe to mavensnotebook.com, and it's tax deductible if you do that. It's a great thing, and we love working with Chris. She's the go-to lady on news and water, and she has the ear of everybody else, and we want to use her ear to spread that around.
She's like I don't know what neutral pH would be, but she's neutral on water issues, so you can always get the real scoop and the truth of what's going on from Chris Austin. So thank you so much for your contributions, and we look forward to talking with you next week.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure.
Great. And remember, to our wonderful audience, the most important thing to do this week is to think blue, because
on Spaceship Earth, we are all crew.
That's right. Adios.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
Hey Ryan, do we have any beer in the fridge?
Nah, I thought you got some.
The game starts in 5.
We not only clean carpet and furniture, we clean many loose rugs, including Oriental rugs. Oriental rugs are cleaned in our modern facility where the fringes are cleaned by hand, then hung in our modern facility to dry. We do not use steam cleaning to clean your fine furniture. Furniture is cleaned by hand using the same absorption cleaning used in the White House. Some furniture we bring into our plant to clean properly. We normally use 2 men on each cleaning job using the extraction method. There is nothing that would clean carpet better for our customers. Our job is to clean properly with quality first. Google Carpet Masters San Bernardino and give us a call, or go to carpetmasterssocal.com.
Lifestyles Unlimited is the real estate investor education and mentoring group that has taken people by the hand and taught them how to invest in real estate for over 24 years. Our students have been so successful at creating wealth and passive income that they've won local, state, and national Investor of the Year awards 9 of the last 9 years. It's easy to see why Personal Real Estate Investor magazine named us the best in the U.S. If you're ready to add real estate to your portfolio, go to getmymapnow.com to access our free live training event schedule.
Wondering who the free workshop is for? We've been amazingly successful with people who are pressed for time. Doctors, lawyers, small business owners, and corporate professionals who are grinding their lives away for earned income and don't realize they can start creating passive income today within the confines of their schedules and commitments. Want to get started now? Go to mypassiveincomeworkshop.com. That's mypassiveincomeworkshop.com.
Now, here's a new concept: digital network advertising, where businesses display your ad inside their building. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, your company is going to thrive with digital network advertising. Choose your marketing sites or jump on the DNA system and advertise with all participants. Your business ad or logo is rotated multiple times an hour inside local businesses where people will discover your company. Digital network advertising. DNA, a novel way to be seen and remembered. Digital network advertising with networks in Redlands and Yucaipa. Call in the 909 area 222-9293 for introductory pricing. That's 909-222-9293 for digital network advertising. One last time, digital network advertising, 909-222-9293.
This holiday season, Quantum Nutrition Labs is featuring our brand new Quantum B12 on special. It contains fully active coenzymes of vitamin B12 that are rich in the desirable blood circulating forms for optimal bioavailability and tissue retention. Call now to get Quantum B12 or any of our other great holiday specials. Each are buy 2, get the third one free. Call 888-588-7578. That's 888-588-7578. Or visit us online at qnlabs.com. That's qnlabs.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Bob Marshall, PhD, host of Healthline. Tune in to get your questions answered and hear the latest breakthrough information for you and your family. This holiday season, give the gift of great health.
KCAA Loma Linda, your CNBC news station, where your business comes first.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living
with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned into my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon here out of the Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, California with UBN Radio TV, Universal Broadcasting Network, and then every Thursday at 7, Saturday at 1 on my syndicated CNBC NBC News radio channel, KCAA AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, radio that leaves no listener behind, that also features Dave Ramsey and Stephanie Miller. So tune in there and everywhere, syndicated on iHeartRadio. So thank you for listening to me splatter hope and happiness all over you, because there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K-words, no Kardashian talk at all. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. And if you haven't seen it yet, I was written up in Forbes magazine. I'm so grateful to Cheryl Snap Connor, and it's called PR Strategies for One Person Business. That's me. And also Inc. What came out, Steve Farber wrote about me on perfectionism, so I have tips on that. So please do go and find my name there, and you will have free advice that I don't use. And more great news, my YouTube views are now over 104,000 views. I'm so grateful. Thank you, all of my listeners and supporters, for continuing to give me the finger, a thumbs up, at Dr. Marissa on Facebook, my public page, Dr. Marissa, and also subscribing on YouTube, subscribing on iTunes. It's all free, but the numbers do help in getting sponsors to keep this show on the air. And I am now in my 6th consecutive year. For those who are just joining, I did win the 2016 Podcast of the Year Top 10 Award in Health, and I'm grateful to you for that as well. Also, if you haven't already seen the shows, I've had some great guests for Hope and Happiness, like Marianne Williamson, to Marianne from Gilligan's Island, Don Wells, child to adult movie star Corey Feldman, and the secret teacher, and also my big brother, Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, who's actually the one who dubbed me and introduced me to Oprah earlier this year as the Asian Oprah. I've also had Muhammad Ali's daughter, Layla Ali, on. So if you've missed any of the shows, it's easy. Just go to YouTube, type in Dr. Marissa on the playlist radio. You can see and hear because of the cameras in the studio. And I also have 2 special series, actually 3. One is call-ins. So if you have any advice that you would like from me, please do sign up with me at forbalance.org to be my next call-in as Dr. Marissa, the kinder, gentler Dr. Laura. I have sexual healing with Dr. Marissa last week of every month because I'm determined to make pleasure a G-rated topic. And then finally, I do have specials, my radio for our deaf community. Because of the cameras in the studio, after my first year, I bring in interpreters. So if you know anyone who uses one of the most beautiful languages in the world, the American Sign Language, please do direct them to that playlist. All right, and now, today, I have a wonderful guest for you, for all the business owners out there who want or are thinking about or who have dreamed about going international and global. He is Philip Auerbach, who's helped hundreds, actually, I think more than hundreds, of many hundreds, thank you, of Fortune 500 companies develop and execute global strategies, including marketing, designing, and implementing to develop new international markets. Mr. Arbach speaks French and Japanese, as well as some Spanish, German, Italian, and Chinese. I thought I had a lot. Over his extensive career, he has worked and traveled in over 50 countries throughout Western Europe, the former USSR, the Pacific Rim, South Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and the Americas. Mr. Arbach earned an international MBA degree with a specialization in marketing from the Thunderbird School of Global Management, and also studied at Institut Catholique in Paris, Waseda University in Tokyo, and East China Normal University in Shanghai. He's been an adjunct professor teaching translations project management at the Monterey Institute for International Studies. Please welcome, live in studio, Mr. Philip Arbach. Absolutely, and it's a pleasure to have you here. How are we doing on science? Sound is okay? Do you want him to sit a little bit closer? There we go. We don't want to lose any of this global business wisdom. So let's start with why globalize. Why would people want to take their business and move it globally, international? What's the upside?
The United States is a huge market, of course, and so
Yes.
people tend to focus here because it's easy and familiar. But the fact is that 72% of the world out there does not speak English. That's about 6.1 billion people. And the statistics show that people who put their websites or their messages in other languages, 86% of them have far more clicks, almost double the amount of clicks or click-throughs than people who keep their information only in English. And as importantly, about $190 billion, American exports are about $190 billion per month.
Wow.
So people don't realize that that's, what a huge number that is. And of
Yes.
course, if you're not getting a piece of that action, you're missing a lot of opportunities.
That sounds, I'm sold. It sounds like a great reason to. And let's go back to the 72%. I'm surprised, and I think it's because we as Americans think we're very ethnocentric, right?
Yes.
We're the center of everything.
Of course.
So we are only 38%. English is only
About 28%.
28%. It reminds me of that joke, what do you call a person who speaks 2 languages?
Bilingual.
3 languages?
Trilingual.
Only 1 language?
American. Of course.
You have heard that joke. Good. You got the punchline. So, so absolutely. In fact, I love trying to share languages with people. And since you are the expert, we'll take a little language lesson here. How do you say thank you in Japanese?
Domo arigato.
Domo arigato. And Chinese?
Xie.
Very good. That was a test. That's Mandarin.
That's Mandarin.
Yes. And in Cantonese?
I don't know Cantonese.
Okay, I'll teach it. There's two ways to say thank you in Cantonese. One is if someone gives you or does something for you, it's mgoi. And if someone gives you something, it's totse.
Tose.
Totse. Interesting. So let me see, what other language do you speak? French.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.
Merci. Not
Right.
murky. Not murky.
Not mercy.
Murky buckets.
Mercy buckets.
I heard
no.
a guy from Texas say that. It was
Right.
not pretty. As well as German.
Thank you. Dankeschön.
Dankeschön. That one I knew. Ich habe 3 Jahre in die Schule Deutsch gelernt.
Ja?
Ja.
Ah, sehr gut. Ja. Ich habe nur ein Jahr in Gymnasium studiert, Deutsch. Which means I studied German only for 1 year in high school.
And mine meant I studied in school. I actually grew up in a German town and wore lederhosen in the Oktoberfest parade because before I had enough to fill out a dirndl. That was TMI, I'm sure. Okay. And then, let's see, Spanish.
Gracias.
Gracias. Is the Spanish that's spoken in America, hablo español, I'm horrible at it, by the way. My daughters speak beautiful Spanish. Is it also dialect different than Spain
Yes.
or Mexico? Yeah.
Yeah, there are many dialects of Spanish, or flavors of Spanish, whatever you want to call. The primary ones are, of course, Castilian, which means European Spanish. And then the other major dialect, of course, is Latin American, which there are two kinds of Latin American, sort of northern Latin America, and then the southern cone, which is Argentina and Chile. They've got their very distinct grammar patterns and vocabulary. And Mexico, of course.
Right, right. Now, is it true, because I've heard this, that on one hand, if you're going to another country, it's good to learn at least hello and thank you to show that you value the difference in the country. And then I've also heard that there's some places where they just would prefer you to speak English because you butcher their language so badly.
Well, it's not, well, maybe you butcher their language, but of course people want to learn English and want to have people to speak to. So it works both ways. You know, it's always a wonderful idea for travelers or Americans to know some words of other languages, to just be polite, and then, but again, you start speaking another language, and very often the natives will start speaking to you in English.
Great, great. And so you actually are an expert in translating things from English into the different languages that you're going to. What's the biggest pitfall that people fall into when they do translations?
Well, my firm translates anything into 80 world languages in both directions, English to others and others into English. And we do a few more than 100, than 80, but I'm very modest, so we just advertise
Say 80. And 8's a lucky number in Chinese.
That's right, yes.
So we'll keep it at 8.
We'll keep it at 80. So in terms of pitfalls for translations, I guess one of the biggest is to think that if you speak a language, you can translate it. And that's something that companies make a mistake of a lot. They think, oh, you know, Juan down the hall or Maria down the hall comes from there, so let's ask her to do it for us. And that's perfectly fine on something very simple, on a very elementary level. You know, where's the street, and where's the church, does this dress come in blue, whatever. But if you're doing anything technical, which is what most businesses do, that's a huge mistake, because you know many of these people came to this country, say, when they were 10. Do you know? You speak Cantonese? Do you know how to say telecom words and software words and technical wine words and agriculture in China? No, of course not. So it's the same thing. People don't know technical terminology in their native languages.
Yeah. So that common language is very different than technical language.
And technical language.
Okay.
And the other big mistake that people think is that Google Translate will work fine.
Google Translate does not work fine. Trust me.
Does not work fine.
People post all kinds of stuff or hit on me on Facebook with different languages, and I translate, and it's like, that's not pretty. That was not a compliment. So whatever it was.
Well, Google Translate is fine to get the gist of what something says. So if you've got something in another language, you want to know what it means in English, that it'll give you 85% of it. But very often it's the nuances and the other little words that will throw you.
Right.
And so people make the huge mistake of putting their websites and using Google Translate to put their websites and brochures in other languages. And that's something absolutely do not do, because it should never be used for outbound marketing. Same thing for contracts. And I'll give you a very simple example. Now, this happened many years ago, and Google has definitely improved since then, but I'll tell you the story anyway. One day a person came off the street, saw a sign on the street and came in and said, look, I had a letter I used Google Translate to send this to my counterparts in China. They wrote back to me in English saying, please write English, we know not what you say. And so they came to us to find out what did they say. So they gave, this is what they sent, and this is what Google Translate did. And we looked at the two, and Google Translate, the English said, next Tuesday we will have a board meeting, and Google Translate said, next Tuesday we will have a collection of planks of wood.
Literal translation.
Yeah, so again, it's become much better since then, but you risk those kinds of
mistakes. Well, the classic branding error was Nova. Right? The Chevrolets, the car they tried to introduce in Mexico, Nova means no go.
And I've read since then that actually did not happen.
Oh, really?
Which is really amazing.
Oh.
But there are many. But it illustrates the wonderful point that the other mistake companies make, especially, is to assume that their English, their company name, their product name, or their tagline can just be translated directly and it will work. And that's a huge mistake. And one, I can give you many examples, but one classic one is you've heard of Puff's tissues,
Yes.
facial tissues.
Yep.
So Puff introduced itself the same name in Europe. In Britain, Puff, they didn't know this, they didn't realize Puff is the name, derogatory word for gay or homosexual.
Okay.
And also Puff in German is a slang word for whorehouse.
Nice. So that's
So,
what you
yes.
want to use
That's
to
what you
blow
wanna
your
use.
nose
Exactly.
with. Yeah. So the nuance, the translation, we have the value behind going international. Did you always know that you were going to be doing this?
No, but I had a good sense when I was a child.
You liked languages?
Well, I liked understanding how people communicated because my family didn't communicate well.
Ah, yes.
I should clarify that. My parents divorced when I was 3, and back in those days it was incredibly unusual, simply not done. And I tried to communicate with my father, and it was very, very difficult to, just because of his own personality. And so
Right.
I had this bizarre notion that he was totally monolingual. He only knew English. But I had this bizarre notion that, well, maybe if I learn another language, maybe that will work.
Okay. Okay.
And he also traveled a lot around the world, and so he exposed me to the world and to learn that there are many different styles of communicating and many assumptions that what works with within a family or within 2 different cultures may not be the same at all.
So it sounds like, out of black bananas, you can still make some good banana bread.
That's right.
Yes,
Absolutely.
that's what life's about.
Yes.
That's what life's about. So if you've just tuned in and you're wondering who I'm talking to, I have an international expert for your business. Philip Auerbach International is his website, and he is my resident expert when and if I do go global. He will be helping me with that transition. You are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, a show about hope and happiness and all kinds of things that are business and spiritual and for kids and for adults. So glad you're tuning in today. So next question for you, Philip, is on your going international, what would you say? Let's see. What are I did the common mistakes. So international strategy, what do you help companies do? So how does a company get your value add?
Well, basically, a company would come to us to tell us either where in the world they want to expand into or what additional countries or perhaps where they're having problems expanding into. And, so we would basically diagnose the issue and propose strategies to help them. So I'll give you some very elementary ones.
Okay. Example, real life example.
Real life example. So one of the things Americans do is to assume that, in this country, I can be in California, pick up the phone and talk to someone in Maine and, just do a deal and that's fine. We've never met before and we haven't spoken before. But that's not the way it's done in most of the world. So Americans assume that they can just go to a country, meet someone for lunch, talk about business, and do a deal.
The deal's done.
And the deal is done. And absolutely that does not work.
Right.
Because the first rule in one of the first rules in international business is that you have to establish relationships with people. That we live in a country where it's very informal and, again, you can just call someone, or email
Not a big
someone.
deal.
Not a big deal. But in most of the world, the relationships that you establish with people are critical because that connotes trust.
Right.
And therefore, if something goes wrong with the contract, it's okay because the relationship is still built on trust and knowing that the 2 parties will try to make it right. as opposed to let's sue them immediately.
Yes, yeah, because it's not just a language; it's a cultural.
It's a cultural issue.
Difference and nuance.
Another example: we're working with an American consumer products company, a healthcare consumer products company that's looking to expand into Japan, and so one of the first things we're advising them is. Again, this is very elementary from the beginning. Don't take your American videos and just put them into Japanese because the messaging is all wrong. Americans, again, will talk right about this is the product, this is how wonderful we are, this is the benefit, this is the money that you're going to save, or the money you're going to make, and so forth.
Right.
And in Japan, you absolutely don't do that.
Right.
You talk about everything else, the benefits to your community, the benefits to your family, the benefits to your whole group that you may be a part of, like an association or something. And way down the line, after you've talked to people a lot, then you can talk about price and revenue.
Right. That's a huge one. That's a huge one. And it is a big difference. I lived in Brussels, Belgium for 2 years. And I had a friend who said, do you notice anything about what is being sold on the shelf? And I looked and no, I mean, everything looks, there's a price and everything. And he goes, what's missing is we don't have things like 50% more, right? We don't have 20% more. It's just whatever size it is, it is. And they could never understand that whole volume grand slam breakfast with, like, why would you want to have that much food on one plate? So it definitely is. And another example, I'll just highlight yours in Japan. I did some business doing AT&T strategy, international strategy. And one of the differences was, you know, the American could not understand. I asked them, do you understand what I'm talking about? And they would all nod their head and say yes. And he said, but then they would go and do what I asked them, and they get it wrong.
Right.
I don't. Why would they say yes, I understand it, if they clearly didn't understand it, and walk away and do something wrong? And he was mad, and I sat him down and said, well, first of all, it is highly insulting. For in Japanese culture to say I don't understand you, because the fault is of the sender, not of the listener. So I don't want to tell you that I didn't understand, because I'd be insulting you as the sender of the message.
Yes, it's about losing face, which is a very critical concept in East Asia.
Exactly. So get over it and quit blaming them, and you change the way that you are communicating. And
it's also, but it's also sometimes how you ask the question. If I say, if you should never ask a question with the negative, like, you understand this, don't you? Because in Japanese, you're responding to the don't you part. No, I don't understand, or yes, I don't understand this, as opposed to no, I don't understand this.
Interesting, interesting. And the other Chinese difference, the biggest difference that I see is on saving face is also the bragging part, you know, which is kind of tied to pricing, right?
Yes, right.
It's there's a saying in Chinese and Japanese, and some car company just used this in their commercial. I was shocked when I heard it. The nail that stands up is hammered down,
banged down. Yes,
right? So
exactly.
you're not supposed to say, I'm good at this. If you talk to a Chinese carpenter and say, are you a good carpenter? Right? I want to hire the best carpenter. They'll say, oh, no, just average.
Right.
And right? Americans are like, well, heck, I don't want to hire an average carpenter, right? But they're the best. But they're just not.
In East Asia, it's very common, and I do this myself also because I've lived in Asia. You never brag about yourself. You never brag about your children. And if someone pays you a compliment, you always downplay. Gee, my daughter is. Gee, I would say to you, gee, your child is so smart, and you would say.
I'd say, oh, no, she's just average, or tell you something that she does that's bad.
She does wrong or something, right?
Now you know why I have all the hang-ups I do, right? I grew up in that.
Yeah, so this is very typical, where you don't toot your horn and you don't say how wonderful you are, because it's considered certainly impolite, but it's considered bragging and arrogant and.
Right, which is why there's a perception that Americans are very arrogant and ethnocentric, and we kind of are.
Yeah.
You know, because we think that everybody else should adapt to our culture.
Right.
You know, that whole when in Rome, do as you. I was part of the first diversity training in LA, helped to perform that. Helped to create some of that programming. And I have to give a peace shout out to Howard Phillips, who I worked with in LA County. He's not doing well right now in his health, and I just found out yesterday. So I just want to send him a healing piece to him. But so there's a phenomena, and you might be aware of this, called the backyard effect, where it's okay to travel and you see diversity as something good, but as soon as you come home and you see that same difference, it's somehow bad. And and one of the great things that I love about the way you move and groove, Philip, is that you are so respectful. And I noticed that about you the first time I met you at CEO Space International. And so thank you for being that. And you're perfectly tooled to do this kind of work, because you're knowledgeable about that.
Well, one of the other mistakes that Americans make is to assume that, as you've said, that everyone is like us, which is totally ridiculous. But more than that, that we're an extremely casual society. And most cultures out there are much more formal, and hierarchy is extremely important, and status is extremely important. And Americans don't respect that or understand that. And so one of the things which absolutely grates on me is that in this culture everyone first names each other, call a total stranger by his first name. And if you're an immigrant coming here, it's shocking. It's totally shocking. And I still get shocked every time. I was born and raised here. But if people call me and try to sell me something, and they start with my first name, my first reaction is, who are you, and do you know me, and have we met, and why are you calling me by my first name?
And in other words, no sale.
Well, basically, because if you start formal, like Mr., Ms., or doctor, or professor, whatever, you can always go informal. Please call me so-and-so. But if you start with a first name, you have no opportunity to go formal.
To go back way.
You can't go backwards. So it's always safe when you're dealing with people, immigrants in this society or people abroad, to use their titles. Titles are extremely important in most cultures.
Beautiful. So it sounds like if you are willing or interested in doing international business, the first skill you need is respect.
Respect and understanding and knowledge that the way we do it here is not the way you do it there necessarily.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen people kind of fall into?
I told the one. I said the one about the brand naming and so forth, and about lunch. Let me see, what are the other ones?
Actually, I just got the signal. I'll let you think about that while we go on a break, because I just got the sign that we are midway through the program. You are tuned in to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. And we'll be back after a sponsorship break. We'll be back in 2 and 2. Peace in and peace out. Do you want to take your business global? Need to understand different cultures to reach a wider audience? Professional translations into 80 languages? Then contact Philip Auerbach for expert guidance on international business strategy and more. Visit www.auerbach-international.com. That's AUERBACH-INTL.com for global success. And we are back. You are tuned into my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon here out of the Sunset Gower Studios, where Scandal, Newsroom, and Heroes are created. And also Dr. Marissa's show for you about hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal, no K-words on Tuesday at noon, naturally high noon, Thursday at 7, Saturday at 1 on my syndicated CNBC News Radio channel, Kcaa, and all over on iHeartRadio. And today we're talking about international business strategy and how Philip Auerbach can help you with that. Not only translations, but we just discovered that the number one skill to have is respect and understanding of different cultures and the way they do business. And you were going to come back and give me another example.
It's similar to what I've said, but Americans look for instant gratification and short-termism. You know, I want it now, I want it in 3 seconds, and I want it to work right away. And usually that does not happen.
Yes.
It's not short-term. It can take a while to cultivate. And again, relationships are very important. And if you're not cultivating the relationships, then the rest of it doesn't really matter.
And now, is this true for all cultures? Are there any cultures that are kind of like us?
Yes, the Australians, New Zealanders, and the Israelis.
Are more on the
very casual side.
Casual, first name, do it now, let's make a decision.
Right.
Would Canadians too, maybe?
They're much more. The Canadians are a balance between American and European. You know, they were colonized by the British and the French.
Right.
And so, and they have a huge immigrant population. I think 25% or more is immigrants, recent immigrants. So Canada's an interesting hybrid, but they're much more European in that way. They're a bit slower, calmer, and you know, take your time and don't rush it.
Yes,
Don't
I was
push
born
it.
in Canada, and I love the little cartoon with the guy saying "I protest" and he's holding up a sign that just says "I protest." Not very protesting. So, how do I choose what countries I'd like to start in? So do you tell people it's better to start in one country or hit them all, or how does that decision
Well, it depends,
happen?
of course, on what the product or service is.
Okay.
I mean, one hint that people have is what kind of inquiries you've gotten from abroad on your website or your blogs, whatever.
Okay.
Interest, perhaps orders from other countries.
Okay.
So that's a hint of where a market might be. But one way that we would start is basically, again, looking at your product or service.
Okay, so let's practice with me, since I have you here.
Your your show?
My show, okay. I'm already in over 100 countries because of the broadcast bandwidth. But let's say I was going to do a Facebook ad. Where would I go first?
Well, I'd have to understand your audience demographics to see, obviously, where
60-40 women, men.
Okay.
The largest audience being in the baby boomer and the generation right before that, although my largest growing audience is the millennials.
But what nationality or what culture doesn't matter?
My India, China. Apparently, I have this huge following in China. I don't know why. Could be because I am Chinese. India, China, Australia, England, Italy. Those are my top foreign countries.
I was going to suggest China just because you are ethnically Chinese, so
yes.
that would be the obvious one.
You didn't think I was Swedish?
Not quite.
No,
Although
okay.
I have dark hair, and when I was on a train in Europe once, this was during the Vietnam War years and years ago, and we were playing in the compartment. We were playing Guess the Nationality, and so we went around the compartment. People came to me and they asked where I'm from, and I said guess, and someone said Swedish. I said, really? I thought all Swedes were, you know, blonde hair, blue eyes. And they said, no, they're dark-haired Swedes. And I said, well, no, I'm actually American. I said, oh, well, then you must be from the CIA.
That's funny.
So that's my Swedish story.
All right, Swedish CIA.
But in terms of you know, certainly China and probably Europe because of the, you know, the kind of message that you have about health and healing and happiness and fulfillment and so forth. And that's much more common in Europe than it is in India, for example, where people are much, well, it's changing, of course, but there's the cultural tradition is fatalism and accepting your reality and not trying to change it very much. Same thing in the Philippines, for example. So, again, this is changing, but those are general rules of where to start.
And that's great information because if I'm using Facebook ads, they have that section where you can choose your audience by demographic and by country. So that makes sense. And I just did that as a little show of what it's like to work with Philip, right? Because that's the kind of consulting you would do with your clients.
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Awesome. So how do we find you?
The website?
Okay.
The website is www.auerbach, AUERBACH-INTL.com. Auerbach International.
Great. And I think Chris has been flashing your website up there, which is great, and that shows sort of the breadth. So you do translations.
We translate we translate to or from 80 languages, primarily business, government, and nonprofit work. And we also do global marketing strategies, identifying countries to go into and the strategies to get you there.
Beautiful, beautiful. What would you, I'm trying to remember what other great questions I prepared to ask you. So I know you've done some preparation. Anything else you wanted to cover?
Well, I guess success stories of how we've helped companies.
Yes.
So I gave the example before of the Japanese, the American firm entering Japan and how you have to change the strategy for that. There's another small company you might have heard of called Fujitsu.
Yes.
That came to us because they had a translation problem. And, in any manufacturing operation, doesn't matter Fujitsu or anybody else, you've got boxes. This is assuming you've got products. Boxes, you can't seal the boxes until all the components, until all the pieces are in place. And therefore, you can't close the box, you can't ship the box until everything is ready. So Fujitsu had a major problem that they had a language agency that was constantly late, like 2 weeks late, in translating the user manuals and the how-to guides and the getting started guides. And so they can't close the boxes, they can't ship the product, they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars because simple translation issue.
Right.
Well, we came in and basically what this 2-week delay ended up not being a delay at all. We were able to get the job done literally within days, and we were within about a week or two we were delivering early, and so we've probably saved Fujitsu at least $500,000
great.
Because we got the manuals printed, translated so they could print, and they could print and close the box and ship the products.
Fabulous.
Something very simple.
Do you do all the translations, or do you hire people as well?
I don't do them at
Oh, you
all,
don't do
no.
them? Okay.
I'm not trained as a translator.
You
So
have to be trained as a
Yes, it's a
translator.
very common myth that if you speak a language, you can translate.
Interesting.
No, so I've studied conversational level on to about 8 languages, some more than others, but I've never been trained as a professional translator, which is really a master's degree.
Interesting.
In that field.
Okay.
My master's is in international marketing, not in translation.
Great. So international marketing, other things that people need to remember before
basically tailor the message accordingly. You have to understand the culture to understand what the benefits and appeals are to them. So, for example, again, Americans tend to focus on price and savings and volume and so forth.
Yep.
If you're going into Latin America, you probably want to talk about how your product or service benefits the family, because the family is very important. In Germany, you put an emphasis on greenness, on environmental issues, if you can do that. So they're different. So the benefits and appeals may be the same, but the emphasis is maybe totally different.
Right.
Certain ones you might say, certain ones you may not say.
Yeah. Now let's hit a little sensitive topic called stereotyping. So do you ever get accused of stereotyping and saying, well, this whole culture is this way or this whole culture is that way?
Well, it depends. I mean, Asian cultures are a little more stereotypable than Western culture.
Yeah,
there.
I have to say something about this. When I used to date, actually, when I have time to date, and a guy would say to me at lunch or dinner, I've always wanted to date an Asian woman. If I stayed, if I didn't leave, I would say, number one, I'm not cooking for you. Number two, I'm not cleaning for you. And number three, I am only walking on your back if I have high heels on. Because anybody that knows me is I do not fall under that stereotype at all for the submissive and all
But there's a
of that.
difference between people in Asia and Asians in the United States, or Asians...
ABCs and CBCs.
ABCs, American-born Chinese,
Yes.
and so forth. So yeah, and there's also a difference between Asians in Asia who have studied in the West or in the United States versus those who haven't. So it's not necessarily stereotypes. There are certain trends that you can start with, and they may or may not apply.
Yeah.
But you know, it's always, if you start with the United States, the trends here are what I call the 3 I's: individualism, initiative, and independence.
Nice.
So foreigners who come here, immigrants who come here, become acculturated and learn certain American values, and those become part of their nature. And so there's a problem often between the first generation, the parents who come, versus the kids who go to high school and are with other
Enculturated.
other Americans, and the disconnect between the two.
Yeah.
So in the same way, each culture has certain values, certain core values.
Yeah.
Now, not every individual may have them, but they're brought up with certain values that they can accept or reject or modify.
Interesting. And I like when you said the trait. I think the trait.
Trend.
The trend. I think we get in a lot of trouble because we see differences as bad.
Right.
If we stop seeing differences as bad, then it's not a big deal to say you're different than I am, right?
Right.
Because that's where the truth in stereotypes come from. There are group differences.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with the group differences, but we get in that trouble
Yeah.
because we walk by a microwave and we smell something that we're not sure about. Instead of saying, oh, I wonder what that is, I'm curious, we say, that smells, who did that? You know, so there's that judgment.
And it's very dangerous also because America, look, it's easy to stereotype all Muslims, for example, because of the problems in the world. But the reality is that people are individuals, and
Correct.
the way that that individuals can behave or be very different than, say the terrorists, for example.
Right.
Most people are not terrorists.
Right. Absolutely.
The vast majority are not terrorists at all.
Yes,
They want to have a normal life like everyone else does.
Like everyone else, exactly. Well, I'm just getting the signal. My last question to all of my guests is, who would you like to thank yourself for helping you be who you are? Who are you grateful to?
My parents, both of them. Even though my father was very difficult when I was a child, it's because of him that I became the opposite in many ways. And my mother was wonderful in a different way. My mother was unconditional. My father was very conditional.
So you got a nice contrast.
Well, not always so nice, but I learned very early on that there are many ways of looking at the same situation.
Yeah.
And that, to balance the two, or to cope with the world, or cope with, different people in your own family or society, you have to look at different points of view and understand that there are multiple ways up the mountain. There are many paths to get there, and not one path may be better than another, maybe shorter, quicker, faster, whatever, but there's still many ways up the mountain, and they can be equally as valid depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Absolutely.
And when.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Thank you, Philip Auerbach. Go to his website, Auerbach, AUERBACH International.com. If you are at all interested or at all thinking about global or international, Philip is the man for you. He will help you with his expertise as well as his wonderful bedside manner as a consultant. That's really wonderful. Thank you for coming on the air with me.
Appreciate
it's
you
been
having
a wonderful
me
show, and best wishes for all that you do.
Thank you.
Yes, and that is Philip Auerbach, and we are at the end of the show when I invite you to my balance bar to step up to see how you can have more balance in your life. And the first way right now is to make sure you are joined to my hip of the 21-day fast from complaining with Dr. Marissa. For those of you who don't know, I don't know where you've been. I've been talking about this for six years. Since 2011, July 1st, I started this good life habit. So if you want to change your life for the better, it's as simple as stopping your complaining. So if you want daily tips on that, you sign up at the number 4balance.org. As well, you can, I post all the time on my Facebook. If you haven't been on, I hit my friend limit a little while ago, so you'll have to go to Dr. Marissa, my public figure page, and give me the finger, a thumbs up, and then you'll get all of the notifications for the 21-day fast. And please do get my app that was created by teenagers that goes with the fast, so that you can know when you are complaining or not. And also, please do join me in Seal Beach, California, my hometown. It's about time. I've been teaching now for 9 years, and this is the first time I'm teaching in my hometown by the pier, Sunset Balance Tai Qigong, every Monday at 6. Go to my meetup page, and you'll find out more information about that. And if you'd like to work with me on your own hope and happiness, if you want to go to international, you go to Philip. But if you want to settle in your own space and figure out why you're not happy 88% of the time, then please do come work with me. I am taking a limited number of private clients next year, so if you'd like to do a test run with me and see if there's a fit, please do sign up at my website, the number 4balance.org, to get a complimentary session to see if we fit. And that's it. Next week, we always have wonderful guests here. If you've missed any of my past shows, from, as I said, Marianne from Gilligan's Island, to Neil Donald Walsh, to Bob Proctor, to Don Miguel Ruiz, to Casey Kasem's daughter, just go to my YouTube, subscribe there, and the iTunes as well. Because it's all about hope and happiness. Please stay tuned to take my advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa Pei. That's P for positive, EI. And remember, it's all about balance. Peace in and peace out.
Before the dawn, for I am weak.
KCAA is your CNBC News affiliate.